Hello, how is everyone doing? It is Mental Health Awareness Week as promoted by the Mental Health Foundation, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to share and reflect on their theme this year, which is loneliness. And I wanted to try and relate this to the Voicework and offer some tools and techniques and just different ways of framing and thinking about this subject with a view to how can we support ourselves during these periods. How can we tap into the power of voice work and using the voice as a way of dropping in and connecting and being present with ourselves and exploring, because loneliness is not necessarily something that we can fix overnight. It's not something that we could come to instantaneously and find a plaster or a bandage to put on it and then it just goes away. Depending on the source of that and whether it's connected to grief or isolation through your social environment or professional, whatever it may be, there are many layers to it. And yeah, my hope is just to open up the space for discussion and really welcome anybody who has their own reflections or experiences that feels safe to share, to comment and to give anecdotes and examples of things that you have found supportive and useful. And as I said, my emphasis and focus around what I can share with you that may be helpful all relates to the facets of looking at the voice and exploring the voice through these different lenses of physiological, psychological, social, emotional and spiritual aspects. But just generally, because this week is about raising awareness, trying to break down stigma about this subject, feeling able and safe enough to even talk about it with others, or just to be visible on a platform, on social media, in the community, wherever it may be, and just be open and honest about our experiences. There's still so much connected to a lack of wanting to expose ourselves and to be perceived as being vulnerable, and that if we do so, that in some way we are weak, or people would consider our professional skill set to be diminished, or that we didn't have emotional capacity to care for others, care for our children, care for our family members. And I think we all go through points and periods of time, even on a daily basis, where we can be confronted by feelings that actually make us feel isolated. And that could be because we are actually in a caregiving role or a supporting role, to the point that we maybe don't have enough space or time or energy left for ourselves. Maybe the recognition of the value of the energy we share is not sufficient to actually nourish us on a very practical level. So I think it's just helpful to note that these feelings can crop up for you at any point during the day. You could be going about your routine, and in the middle of washing the dishes or making yourself a cup of tea, a wave of loneliness or a moment of just feeling disconnected, despondent, and not antisocial, but just not excited at the prospect, perhaps of interacting and sharing with others. And personally, I can reflect on that in terms of energy levels. When energy levels feel low or depleted to the point where the cup is not being refilled or restored in a way that actually is helping there to be balance and consistency in like daily routine. That is quite often when, you know, all sorts of feelings can come in that are kind of connected to isolation and just feeling a little bit distant from everything. And the irony is that often in moments like that, we don't feel that we want to reach out to anyone. We don't want to bother anyone. We don't want to be a burden. We don't want to, especially if it's something that is fleeting or passing, or, you know, not all consuming. It's not taking us to the point of high risk depressive or suicidal tendencies. We tend to brush off, we tend to play down and dismiss. And over time, if we continue to ignore that voice essentially within us that is actually asking for a little bit of support or help in whatever, you know, way that manifests, if we continue to ignore that, then we are reaffirming and giving ourselves that repetitive message over and over that we're not worthy, we're not deserving of that time or space or attention. And if we don't give that to ourselves on some level, it becomes harder for us to reach out, to ask support from those who might be able to offer it. And you can see how this creates a bit of a feedback loop and negative reinforcement, which serves to contribute towards unhelpful patterns of behaviour, which we didn't necessarily set out or intend to create, but just through our circumstances and through our outlook, and maybe just also a lack of confidence to articulate our needs, that we become stuck in patterns. So there are several elements that from that I can unpick and offer some gentle approaches, which are again specifically related to a lens of voice, and I've said this many times before, but it always pays to say it again, especially if you are just coming across this video or if you're not familiar with my work. When I talk about voice, although I do facilitate and hold space for people to explore voice in a very dynamic way, to do with vocal development for, say, performative singing. When I talk about voice, I'm talking about it in a multifaceted, multidimensional way. So voice pertaining to not just the physical instrument or the creative kind of inspiration, but all of our layers and processes of internal dialogue, communication, intention, and the different ways in which that is expressed, through the body, through our speech and communication, through our outlook, through our energy. So I don't want to go into that in a super deep way right now, because that in itself is a subject that could be discussed at length. But just to clarify what I mean when I say voice, I'm really talking about these multifaceted layers and not just the singing or speaking voice. So let's come to a foundation which is really important for creative work. It's really important for our physical work, but also crucially really important for our emotional and mental well-being as well. So breath is one of the most simple and complex areas, and I say this because it's something that is so easy to access. It is freely available to us. We can dialogue with our breath wherever we are, whatever environment we're in, on the go, static, in the house, out the house, in company, alone. But also because of the intimacy and nature of breath as something which gives you instantaneous feedback about your physical sense of self, about your emotional spectrum, about your headspace. It gives you so many great indications as to where you are sitting on a spectrum. And if you've ever filled in a point-based questionnaire in relation to mental health, it's often a scale that is used, like from 1 to 10, how positive or are you feeling, this kind of idea. If we think about the breath as offering this spectrum, this range of possibility, and without having polarity as this completely linear, definitive perspective, but just simply thinking, okay, not so good, great, and all of the possible variations and manifestations of those expressions, our breath will really help us to gain a reading or an insight of the space that we find ourselves in. And so in this way, before coming to breath, and to be in a good space of receptivity to breath. I feel that it's really important to use visualization and affirmation prior to this, so that we give ourselves a chance to prepare the mind and the body, that body-mind relationship of saying, you know, right, I would like to come to meet my breath. I would like to be in a quiet space. Obviously, you have to use what is available to you in your context, in your environment. But if you have the opportunity to be still and to be present and undisturbed, and somewhere that you feel safe to go into a softer, more intimate exploration, then I would really invite you to do that and encourage you to do that, because that just allows you to tap into a level of awareness that we don't often in our busy lives get a chance to really meet. And so we kind of lose this sensitivity towards that space. And often when we are confronted with opportunities to be there and to just sit with that, because it's unfamiliar, it can feel uncomfortable and a little bit threatening to the body at times. If we're calming the central nervous system, if we're calming the frenetic pace of our thoughts and bringing everything down to a nice kind of quality of quietude and stillness, that can feel unsettling, as mad as that sounds. If we're kind of flying on adrenaline all the time and relying on stimulation to keep us like buoyant and upright all the time, then it can feel quite jarring to move into the other quality of that space. So that's why I suggest, before moving into any active participation with the breath, we come into body. And you could do this right now, for example, cross-legged, and you're sat somewhere. I personally find I have a better connection when I soften my focus or I close my eyes. It just brings me straight away inside. And I'm not beginning to launch into any sort of circles of breathing. I'm just neutral at the moment and giving myself a second to adjust to essentially a new dimension of awareness. So at this point, if my brain was going too fast, too much information, a song stuck on a loop in my head, whatever it might be, I'm just gently registering and noticing these things. I'm almost taking inventory, just like, okay, there's all these elements that they might be external, they might be of my own creation, they might be me processing and responding to things that I've interacted with in my environment. But at the moment, they all have something that they want to say and something that they want to communicate. And maybe there's so much noise and so much disruption there that it's preventing me from really being able to hear and listen to that softer, quieter voice within myself that is actually the part of me maybe that feels isolated because it cannot be heard, it cannot be understood, I cannot reach it because there's all of this energetic interference and noise and debris in the way. So by coming into this relaxed, neutral position and perspective, we're giving ourselves an opportunity to just let everything just start to quieten down of its own accord. So as you're just letting things unfold and just noticing, not trying to involve too much this inner critic or the analyst, not trying to control or suppress any of these things, but just noticing and observing. And almost the parts that want recognition, once they have been acknowledged but not entertained, some of these voices, if you like, begin to quieten down a little. And for those that are still very active and present, this is when we can start to come more into the physical, even deeper still, as a way of helping us process and regulate and control elements of the body, and in so doing creating a trigger and a response. So we can start to just be aware of any extraneous tension that we're holding. So anything that is not necessary. What are our shoulders doing, for example? Do they feel like they're all the way up here? Do they feel tight? Are they locked anywhere? What about moving that sensation down the arms, past the elbows, just really inviting softening to happen, all the way to the extremity and the hands and the fingertips. What are the hands doing? Are you unconsciously tense and tight in your hands? Maybe you are locked. Maybe you've been sitting at the desk all day. Maybe you've been doing manual labor. There might be patterns of tension that have been there for a long time. So we're just gently bringing an awareness to the area that feels that there might be tightness or restriction. And with that awareness, moving through to the extent of that limb or that muscle, and casting the awareness out and beyond. So if we were starting at the shoulder or around the neck, our visualization ends beyond the end of the hands, so that we can really invite the energy to move through and out the body, and you can really tap into that sense of softening and releasing when we start to introduce the breath as well, like breathing into, through and out areas, just as a way of combining visualization with an active physical process, and also releasing the breath is both symbolic and physically beneficial too. So you can continue this process of body scanning and just observing, noticing, feeling into tightness, restriction, perhaps a few aches and pains that are maybe making themselves known to you. So noticing as well any shifts and changes with the frequency of your thoughts, just generally what's going on for you beyond the physical space, how these small shifts and changes that we make within the body have an impact on the mind and the emotional field as well. And when you feel comfortable, when you feel that you might be ready to transition into a space where we're starting to more actively work with the breath, and when I say comfortable, the whole process might be feeling at this point strange enough and uncomfortable enough for you that you're like, I'm not really feeling this, I'm not really up for this. I say comfortable as in mentally you're prepared for a task which is about inviting yourself into some time and space for you, and that is a commitment to yourself, that is a form of self-care. That's not to say that your process will be easy, because you may be going through some really big, difficult challenges, and I, for one, would never never suggest that just breathing in and out is going to make all your problems melt away, because I have been through enough challenges myself to know that sometimes just coming to sit and to be present with ourselves and to breathe might be the only thing that we can achieve on a given day if we're going through some really tough times. But having said that, as a tool for its simplicity and its effectiveness to bring us into a space where, you know, there has to be a bit of honesty and integrity there about, you know, what we're facing. I think there's something really valuable in that, because it means, you know, we're prepared to give ourselves the time of day, and we're prepared to perhaps meet parts of ourselves that are a bit, oh, I'm not sure about this, or, you know, and that is, as uncomfortable as that is, it's a starting point. And often the most challenging thing with mental health issues is just beginning to take a step in a positive or healing direction, or beginning to share what's going on for you with someone, so that you can reach out for support, or just beginning to explore uncomfortable feelings that you're having to try and understand where they stem from and what's going on. And if you are experiencing anything like that, if you have ever experienced anything like that, I salute you for that work, because it's so challenging and it's so important, but it's also really, really worthwhile. And I think that's a point just to take note of and remember, because sometimes the more challenging elements that we feel a bit of resistance to, you know, serve in a kind of funny way to push us to extend beyond what feels like it might be possible, because our perspective is tending towards a negative outlook because we're trying to protect ourselves, or we're tired and we've had enough and we don't want to do anymore. And I think there's a fine balance between pressure which pushes you over the edge and pressure which is healthy, that actually spurs you on to stretch beyond what is challenging and reach to the other side, and hopefully through that process have found some soothing, some nourishment, some wisdom, from your experience. But with all of this being said, your journey is personal, your circumstances are unique, and this way of intuitively approaching and working with yourself, it's like, taking yourself in high esteem, treating yourself with high regard, in just a very simplistic way, like honoring yourself in the way that you would extend care to someone else that you really valued, that you really loved, that you wanted to see succeed and do well. So just going really gently, really softly. You don't need to be that kind of aggressive trainer, or one of my friends says, my little general was really strong today, do this, do that, better, harder, faster, stronger, that in the context of the body scanning and the breath is too aggressive. It's too much. It's not going to offer us that quality and sensitivity of listening that allows, say, the more vulnerable parts of ourselves to actually feel safe enough to come forward and to make themselves known. So just a word of recognizing your own boundaries and limitations, and the fine line between what is anxiety around feeling uncomfortable because change is afoot, which is totally normal and quite healthy to have a little bit of oh, what's going on here, and the more debilitating stuff, which is actually oh no, I'm moving too quickly here, this feels like a red flag for me, this is bringing something up, I don't want to go any further because I feel if I do, it's going to heighten my arousal, my stress response, or take me into a space where I don't feel that I will be able to self-regulate. So it's about just having that sensitivity of awareness, and if all of this stuff is new to you, if the language that I'm using is new to you in that respect, even more reason to go gently and to go slowly, or to, reach out and ask people that have used tools and techniques like this, that you trust. So important that you trust them. Or to look for resources, self-help resources that resonate with you and that feel are clear and easy to understand, so that there's no ambiguity there. And maybe these are things that you can explore with a friend or a family member. It's not to say that these approaches have to be done in isolation. Obviously that is the theme. It's often so powerful to be held in a supportive group setting with other people, and kind of go on that journey together, because it gives you an opportunity for the peer support element, and it gives you time and space to discuss with other people and say, oh, I wasn't sure about that. How was that for you? How did you find it? So yes, these all are just things to consider, and things that I wanted to mention before I invite you to move from the physical awareness into the breath awareness. So assuming we've spent a little bit of time getting comfortable, I'm going to put a light on here for a second. Bear with me. So assuming that we've spent, yes, some time just landing into our bodies, checking in extraneous tension, checking in any pain, anything that one should be aware of before moving into the next level of effectively relaxation, which is definitely one of the primary aims when we're coming to breath in a slow and gentle way. The next part of the body scanning relates to finding the breath. So again, softening your focus if that helps you. I am at this point just in my mind's eye internally sweeping through the body, and I'm trying to get a sense of where my breath is sitting. Now when I say that, I just mean, where does my breath feel most present and active? Where is it residing? Is it hiding somewhere? So if we're particularly tight and tense, and there's a lot of restriction around the chest, and even though we may have done a little bit of releasing around the shoulders, this area can be very tight for many people. So perhaps we're not really feeling the breath at all in the main trunk of the body. Perhaps the sensation or awareness you have about your energy is that it's at the extremities. Maybe you are visualizing that or tapping into that in your feet. Maybe it doesn't feel that it is nourishing a certain part of the body. So once we feel we've got a grasp roughly on where we feel into the breath, can start to just explore that a little bit deeper. Does it have a color? Does it have a flavor? Are there any other ways that you can begin to relate to that? Has it got a shape? Just characterizations and qualities. Is it soft? Is it cold or warm? Is it shallow? Just again, it's using the same kind of reflex with the body scanning, but we're just bringing it into a more intimate space by thinking about breath, thinking about energy. Does it feel nourishing? Is it a restorative breath? Does it feel full? Does it feel, what's the capacity of it like? So there doesn't need to be definitive answers to these things. It's just little prompts to initiate internal dialogue and reflection. So with the information that you have, you can start to build up a picture and a sense of, okay, it's maybe this, but it's not this, or it feels more like this, but not so much this. And we can then start to think about where we can guide it to, or how we can cultivate the right quality of space in the body for the breath to feel like it's sitting in a nourishing place for us to actually open up our capacity for it to be more centered around a nourishing diaphragmatic breathing, just to bring that energy maybe away from shallow, raspy quality, tight chest, down into the belly, expanding, softening. So just giving yourself a little bit of time to work with it, and it's not about sitting there and we're not actively trying to push or force the breath in any particular direction. We are just meeting it, making friends with it, if you like, trying to ascertain what its needs are and whether it would like to come and play with us. So as you're in this space as well, you might be finding that there are certain physical reflexes that are automatically wanting to happen. You know, once we bring our attention to something and start responding in a sympathetic way to its needs, if we've been restricted and we're offering, oh, actually I want a bit more room to breathe, I want to be a bit feeling more centered here, I want that breath to feel a bit more rich and nourishing, you know, oh, suddenly I kind of want to stretch a little bit and maybe actually yawning, which is a very healthy, natural process of relaxation. So all of these things are completely normal, and just allowing that to unfold. Again, it's just can just be a couple of minutes really doing this. Just once you have tapped into this experience and got a sense of what that realm is like, and you know, it's easier to drop back into this space at another point without it feeling so like, oh, what's this about? I'm not really sure. And you could find yourself before you go to bed or when you wake up in the morning is a really good space to be checking in with the body and the breath, because we're nice and relaxed. We can have the hands on the belly, we can really get a sense of movement, especially if we're lying down, or if we're in the comfort of a warm bath or in the shower. You've got the benefit of the muscles being really relaxed with the warm water. It's just spaces like that that you're probably naturally falling into a more relaxed breathing pattern anyway, but good to log and notice differences in a more active and conscious way, because then we're giving the brain an opportunity to recognize, oh yeah, this feels good. And then the moments in your day where you're maybe feeling a little bit off kilter, or just like, oh, I need to regulate here, and how can I do that? One of the first ways that I attempt to bring myself into that kind of good space, grounded space again, is just to go, okay, what's going on here with my body? Like, feeling a bit shaky, or, you know, okay, coming into breath, just actively being with the breath for a couple of moments can just be enough to offer us like a moment of reset, or enough time to still the brain, just to bring us back into, yeah, into the present moment. So yes, at this point, that is all I'm going to share on breath, because moving into exercises that are more in terms of shifting awareness between in breath and out breath, and moving into different cycles and patterns of breathing, are all amazing, and they all have their time and their place. But the foundation for all of them is just about cultivating that standing relationship, that foundational connection first and foremost. And there is so much good information that can come just from allowing yourself to be with the breath in a very gentle and basic way. And I guarantee you that regardless of any other exercises that might come your way, or that you might be shown for different reasons, that one is an absolute staple that will 100% stay with you. And yeah, get that nice and strong, and get to know yourself through that dimension, and that will really, really support you. So I hope that that has been helpful, and I would invite you to share any experiences that you've had with that, if that resonates, if that makes sense to you, if there was anything that came up through that was interesting, that you feel that you want to share or mention in a kind of a collective space that would be interesting anecdotally for other people to read. Also inviting you to drop me a message as well if you kind of felt like there were some things there that felt a little strange to me, or, you know, brought up some things and that made you feel maybe I need a bit more time to explore this in a way that feels a bit more supported and safe. Please do feel free to do that, because it's really important that we do reach out to each other when we're unsure, because yeah, we can be signposted onto some really amazing resources if we only ask. And yes, so just coming back to how this weaves into isolation. Giving ourselves acknowledgement of that space, so that we don't diminish that feeling or sensation, that we appreciate and acknowledge that isolation is challenging and difficult, but it is a part of the human experience. If we give ourselves a chance to soften and come into a restorative space of awareness, of just holding ourselves and giving ourselves a little bit of nurture, even if it's for a couple of minutes, that is a nice, gentle way of approaching a bit of self-care that's kind of, okay, wherever I am, whoever I'm with, whatever is going on, even if the world feels totally chaotic and up against me, and network, friends, family are not coming through for me, being present enough to just give yourself a few minutes really, really supports that remembrance that we can always offer ourselves something, even if it's seems really, really small and really, really tiny. There's always that opportunity just to kind of come back into this sense of like being cocooned and protected, and just, yeah, like that nice, easy space of just, okay, I'm just breathing in and out here, and just giving yourself a bit of an internal hug. So I'm going to leave you with that, and invite you to explore that and to practice with that. And please continue the discussion, because yeah, this is Mental Health Awareness Week, but it's Mental Health Awareness Day every day as far as I'm concerned. There's always something going on with someone somewhere, and it's important that we, you know, continue to talk about all of this stuff and continue to share information and resources with each other. Just even the smallest thing shared in an open, sensitive way, without pressure or demand on people, can sometimes just enter your field and show up at the exact right moment that you need something to give you a little bit of a lift. So yeah, good luck, and let's keep chatting. Take care.